Do you know when the Joe Rogan Experience began? Back on Christmas Eve in 2009. Since then, over 2,000 episodes have been released. However, many of these have fallen through the cracks, and despite being 10 out of 10 super interesting episodes, you have never heard of them. Today, we will change that and bring to your attention 15 of the most underrated JRE episodes. Sue Akins. This lady is like the female version of David Goggins. Sue Akins lives in extreme isolation in Navik, which is 197 miles north of the Arctic Circle, and was a part of the show Life Below Zero, which documents people who live in extreme isolation. She was on episode 566 back in October 2014, and it was clear to see that she is a badass woman living in a badass place. Sue Akins talks about crazy wildlife and survival stories.
And the past couple of years, I've been able to watch a pack of wolves take down a grizzly.
Whoa.
And, like this last year, they just have to get him running, because within a mile or two, he's used up all of his calories, and there's no way he's going to survive. So when they came running through camp, crashing into my building as they go, I'm sitting there on the inside, with my gun going, yeah, come through the wall, fucker, I'll get you, but not until they do. And they went right past, and boom, they took him down on the end of the airstrip and ate him. So those are things that I get to experience that, for an adrenaline junkie, somebody that's always pushing the limits, that's pretty skookum. That's pretty good.
What was that like? That had to be insane. Watching a pack of wolves take out a grizzly.
Yeah, well, it is because, it comes at the time of the year when I have 24-hour darkness. So I only have a limited amount of space where I can see them, and then poof, it's gone. I don't know if they're going to come around and come back inside. I don't know if they've finished it. I don't know if there's a couple of rogue wolves waiting for me to come out. So your own existence then becomes quite limited to inside until you know that it's clear.
What a fascinating way to live life.
Jesse Ventura. Have you seen the movie American Sniper? Well, this episode really does give some mind-blowing context to the film. So Jesse Ventura is a very, very unique character who has lived a crazy life. He is a former Navy SEAL, professional wrestler, actor, author, and politician who served as the 38th governor of Minnesota from 1999 to 2003. As reflected by Jesse's varied life, they cover a huge range of topics, such as, in true Joe Rogan fashion, marijuana legalization.
The reason that I personally have gotten on the bandwagon, and I've made this a personal focus, is because I had completely lost my quality of life, and marijuana's given it back.
How so?
Well, I won't say because of privacy, but someone extremely close to me developed epileptic seizure disorder and was seizing 3 to 4 times a week. And I was taking care of these seizures 3 to 4 times a week. If you've ever dealt with someone with a seizure disorder, it's a feeling of helplessness. It's a feeling of pain. You can't even imagine what that person's going through. This is the person taking care of them. And if it's someone you love, the pain is unbelievable. And so the person was put on 4 different, one after the other, pharmaceutical medicines for seizures, right? None of them worked. They all had horrible side effects. The seizures continued for over 2 years. Finally, in desperation, we went to Colorado. The person got, quote, medical marijuana, 3 drops under the tongue 3 times a day. Amazingly, the seizures stopped.
However, they also address the controversy about how Chris Kyle, the Navy SEAL sniper, which the movie American Sniper was based on, claimed that Jesse Ventura punched him at a dinner party.
Me, it's like I've been accused of something I didn't do. I don't even know the guy. Never. I may have met him that night briefly.
Well,
Maybe.
let me tell you something. I obviously didn't get 1/1,000,000% of the amount of hate that you did, but just reading.
I got read off. September 11th of this year, I was in New York doing this book tour, and I got read off in a hotel lobby over this.
What does that mean, read off?
A guy yelled and screamed at me in front of the entire hotel lobby.
Jesus Christ.
That's what I live with now. And I haven't been damaged. My reputation isn't damaged over something I never did.
Henry Rollins. Speaking of characters with rare personalities, Henry Rollins is also one of the most unique guests to have gone on JRE. This is clear to see at minute 1, even from the way he wears his headphones. He was a musician most known for being a part of the rock band Black Flag. However, he's also an actor, writer, and radio host. Rollins is a great storyteller who's lived an extremely interesting life. For example, he's very well traveled and enjoys visiting obscure places.
I try to live an eventful life. Like I work at it. It's not by chance. Like you give me 6 weeks off where I know I'm clear. I just whip out my high-res GIF file of the map of the world and I pick one country and go, okay, then I'll just go east from there. Like China, Mongolia, Bhutan, Tibet, Vietnam, back to LA. And I'll just go do that.
I want to get back to this, but what happened with your friend that in California? Is this the same sort of a thing where you just wanted to check out a place?
Oh, no. We were robbed and the guy started shooting. And the guy killed my friend and shot at me and just missed me very closely. But that was a big turning point in my life. I mean, that changed everything for me.
When was this?
25 years ago. But, it changes everything that you think about everything.
Listen to stories such as when he visited North Korea, Iran, Mongolia, and many more places. Rollins would also even give a really interesting self-reflection, which I have never really heard many people say about themselves.
Well, you get involved in relationships, or you get a girlfriend or something like that, and they realize
It fails.
what they're getting involved with. They're like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, it's more what I'm getting involved with, and I realize I can't hack it. Because here's the awful thing about being an adult in a relationship, seeking to be an adult in a relationship, I have found. When I was young and I was a boy and I was dating girls, it's boys and girls, and she's an idiot, you're an idiot, you do dumb things, and everyone cheats and whatever. Then you hit a certain part of your life where she's a woman and you're a man, and you have adult expectations. And you can't be running around being an idiot with someone who kind of wants you to be at the table because they are sincerely giving time of their adult life to this thing that you are doing together.
Right.
And when you come in still thinking you're in 9th grade, and she's coming in like, this is part of what my life is being with you. I have never been able to answer that in a mature enough way to where I would have been able to maintain it. Because like say next weekend, if I had a girlfriend, she might say, it's Friday, what are we doing? I'm like, oh, watching me write for 4 hours? And so that's not the way to be. You can't do that. And so I can't be a good person's other half because the work has always attracted me more than coming home to someone.
Wow.
Like I can't stand the idea of living with a person. I can do it on the bus because it's Das Boot and we're going down the road. But I never would want to wake up and she's there, and I have no aversion.
The fucking expression that you just made, where you look to your right, she's there.
Well, Robert Sapolsky. Let's switch gears. The next episode is with Robert Sapolsky, who is a neuroendocrinologist. What on earth does that mean? It is a branch of biology that studies the interaction between the nervous system and the endocrine system. Okay, well, why is that important? Well, in episode 965, Robert Sapolsky explains some of his various and fascinating research which answers that question. To begin, Sapolsky talks about a completely secretive disease that has infected an estimated 50% of all humans globally.
Really, I mean, what is the number that you estimate in Americans alone that might have been infected?
It's on the order of, well, I'm not sure with Americans, but worldwide it's something like 50% of humans is the best guess.
50% of humans worldwide.
Something on that scale.
And for people who never heard of this, would you mind explaining what this parasite is and how it affects rats and then cats and then people?
Okay, totally bizarre. So it's this protozoan parasite, Toxoplasma gondii, and it's got one of these weird parasitic lifestyles. The only place on Earth where it could reproduce sexually is in the gut of a cat. I don't know why there are people who know this, but So it reproduces there, comes out in the cat feces. Feces are eaten by rodents, and now Toxo's evolutionary challenge is to get that rodent into a cat's stomach.
Sapolsky would go on to explain how there is evidence that toxoplasmosis in humans can increase the risk of schizophrenia and changes in personality and behavior. Other topics they would discuss include oxytocin's role in forming human-dog relationships, the role of the frontal cortex in human behavior, and his long-term study of baboons, focusing on how stress and social hierarchy affect their health. Annie Jacobsen. At some point, there was always going to be a mind-blowing conspiracy-oriented guest on this list. Annie Jacobsen was a more recent episode from May 2019. She is an investigative journalist and author who published books covering topics on the US space program, the secret operations of the CIA, and World War II. It is no surprise that they cover Area 51 and if there are aliens that have visited Earth.
I interview a man who worked for the Atomic Energy Commission, who tells a different story. Tells the story of receiving that craft at Area 51 in 1951, which is why the base is called Area 51.
Oh.
And that inside the craft were humans who had been altered, surgically altered to look like aliens, in a plan for Stalin to sort of twist Truman's arm, because at that time, we had the atomic bomb. When Roswell happened, we had the atomic bomb, and the Soviets did not.
Other topics also include CIA assassin missions and government weapon experiments. One of the most knowledgeable guests on these topics, and the episode deserves much more recognition. Louis Simmons. Louis Simmons is one of the most iconic figures in the weightlifting scene who is deeply missed. He's a popular weightlifting and strength coach who, like many people on this list, is a very unique character. Louis Simmons was on the podcast in September 2016, which they actually filmed in his infamous gym, Westside Barbell. Not only is he extremely knowledgeable in weightlifting, he's also hilarious, which you will realize through the episode. Louis has a very interesting and different philosophy when it comes to training. For example, he doesn't believe in having a training schedule.
Now, how do you create a schedule? Like, say if you're working with a guy and you know,
we don't believe in schedule.
You don't believe in it.
No, even my guys, I had the strongest gym in the world, broke about 140 all-time world records. At breakfast, and Tom can verify, at breakfast in the morning at 6 o'clock, 6:30, we decide what we're going to do that day. Because see, strength's measured in time. It's not measured in weight. It's measured in time. Remember, I talked about velocities. And so we just pick an exercise. Like for you, if we did a real low box squat and it takes longer than squatting 800 pounds, you're going to squat 800 pounds. You choke me out, after a while I'm going to tap. Mm-hmm. All right. Or if we run, after a while, I'm going to run out of oxygen. I'm going to quit. Same thing for strength. You can only strain so long. So as long as you strain at least that length of time or longer, you're going to break a classical lift, a squat, bench, or deadlift.
Another thing that he talks about is why he runs Westside Barbell, which is a private gym, instead of running a commercial gym.
So why'd you decide to have a private gym? Like, how come you don't open this up? I can't stand
commercial gyms. I can't stand to be around people that don't. You know, if you're a real fighter, you don't want to be around a bunch of fags, right? I mean, I can't stand to go into a commercial gym. I can't stand it. I just I'll leave in 5 minutes.
Because they're not working out hard enough?
They're not working out hard. They don't know what the hell they're doing. You know, looking in the mirrors, looking at girls' ass and shit like that. I like ass, but when I'm in the gym, I want to work out. Then I'll go look at the ass.
Louis also sadly passed away in early 2022, which was a massive loss in the weightlifting community. Randall Park and Eddie Huang. Do you remember the 2014 movie, The Interview, and the scandal it caused? Well, episode 604 is with Randall Park, who played Kim Jong-un in the movie, as well as the hilarious Eddie Huang. Firstly, the movie The Interview was a satire about the CIA attempting to assassinate the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. As expected, North Korea was not thrilled about this movie and actually declared the movie an act of war, and it is speculated they were behind a massive hack on Sony in 2014, hence the movie and the whole scandal are discussed.
You are in the middle of one of the most controversial movies in the history of the world.
Yeah.
I
play Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, in The Interview.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is fucking crazy, man.
I didn't think it was crazy when I signed on. I realized it was crazy, you know, in the midst of all that. Yeah.
What is the verdict? Because they say that it's not North Korea. Someone was saying it was an insider at Sony. They had it narrowed down to a woman who hacked it.
Read that. You know, I don't know. I don't know, because after they came out with that, the FBI came out and said, no, it is North Korea. We have a lot of information that we haven't released, but it is. Trust us.
Did you at any point in time feel like you fucked up?
No, man. You know, no. This is the thing. I wasn't like scared for my life or anything like that.
I'm scared for your life.
But this is the thing. There were enough people like you, friends, family, people who were genuinely scared for my life that it got me thinking, like, should I be scared for my life?
Well, you had Secret Service at the
We
crib.
had guards at the house.
What?
Yeah. Sony provided us guards.
For how long?
It's like a couple weeks.
What the fuck, Sony?
At first I was like, we don't need guards. Seriously, we don't need guards. They're like, let us just give you some guards just for peace of mind. I was like, all right. And then one day they were just gone. Like a few weeks later, they were gone. And I was thinking, oh my God, where are the guards? I need the guards.
Anthony Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain only featured once on the podcast in episode 138, which was released back in September 2011. He was a chef who released the book Kitchen Confidential in 2000, which took off, and Bourdain became an overnight success story. From there, he would film a documentary series where he would explore international cuisine, which was also very popular.
Wow, what a crazy change of life at 44 years of age. How much did you travel before then?
Almost nothing. I mean, I'd been to France a couple of summers as a kid. I'd been to the Caribbean. That was about it. I mean, I was, if I was sure of anything at age 44, standing in the kitchen, it was that I'd never see, Saigon or Hong Kong, much less, I had no expectation I'd ever see Rome. So I'm just kind of living that out. And as long as me and the crew, as long as we're having as much fun as we are, at least finding ways to make like more and more fucked up television.
It's a very interesting podcast, as Bourdain gives us stories on traveling to these obscure places. Joe also mentions Bourdain a lot during many other episodes, and it is clear that Joe really admired him, which is highlighted when Joe talks about Bourdain's unfortunate passing in 2018.
I wasn't close with Anthony Bourdain, but I really liked him a lot.
You knew him, you met him. I met him with you once.
Yeah, and when I hung out with him, I really enjoyed it. I did a show. We did an episode of his show in Montana. We went camping together. And
oh, really?
Got fucked up by a campfire. Yeah, it was great. We had a great old time. Cool. It was really fun. But I was stunned when that happened. And I just wanted to know, like, when you were at your worst, when you were having like really shitty feelings, like what could have been anything that someone could have done that could have helped you?
Jeff Evans and Bud Brutzman. This episode had my palms sweating. Jeff Evans is an adventurer and high-altitude medic who went on an expedition with his blind friend to get to the peak of Mount Everest.
Oh, you took a blind dude all the way to the top. Why didn't you take him like halfway? Yeah.
Blow in his face.
Dude, you made it. You're one of the rare ones.
The funny part was we got to the top and we were like, man, we can see the curvature of the earth from here, bro. And he goes, I don't give a shit. Like, I want to get out of here. I can't see anything. I want to go.
That's weird. That's actually not true. What he said is, hey, Eric, take a look around.
Bud Brutzman, on the other hand, is a TV producer who introduced Joe to this high-altitude medic, culminating in this episode. Jeff Evans would go into detail about the dangers associated with climbing Everest, including several crazy rescue stories that he and his team had to carry out for people who got stranded while trying to climb Everest. It is a great episode if you're into thrilling stories. I will say, though, it has terrified me enough to make me question any goals I had of going up Everest. Dorian Yates. Dorian Yates won Mr. Olympia 6 consecutive times from 1992 to 1997, and was on the show for episode 989 back in July 2017. However, this episode is far more than just average bodybuilder and gym talk. Yates was renowned for having a Spartan mentality in the gym, which he dives deep into, as well as comparing the differences between bodybuilding nowadays to the 80s and 90s, and going into detail about his unique high-intensity, low-volume training.
Training 10 hours a day is not going to build your muscle, it's just going to burn out. So I was doing average 45, 50-minute workouts probably 4 times a week.
That was that's it.
That was
wow,
it.
That's
that was
incredible.
It. And everybody says, oh, that's it. Well, I write on a piece of paper, what the fuck is that? That's nothing, man. I'm like, okay, but come and do it. come and do it and tell me if you want to do more when we're finished. Nobody has ever said, oh, please come and do some more. They're like, no, that's it. That's enough.
They also discuss steroid use, which is often somewhat of a taboo topic within the gym. Yet Yates was brutally honest about the risks and his use of steroids and how he viewed it.
Now, when you got off of everything, when you retired, what was the crash like?
Well, it wasn't something I was ready for. I had a lot of things going on in my life. I had a divorce. I had somebody close to me pass away. And I'm, retiring. So, they say a death in the family or a divorce or a retirement is like a major stressful event. Well, how about having all fucking three at the same time while you're coming down from steroids? So, yeah, I definitely suffer from depression, anxiety. I don't know what's going on. Like, why do I feel like this? I didn't even now I know. Right. Yeah, because you fucking stop cold turkey. Because I'm extreme. I'm using them because I'm doing this. I'm stopped, now I'm stopped. So, and I had no real help. There was no real there's guys now, especially in the States, that they specialize in patients that are using steroids and all the possible side effects and coming off and all that stuff. I don't really have any of that, so I just went cold turkey.
However, in true Joe Rogan fashion, they also get into DMT and ayahuasca, with Yates describing some crazy experiences from using it.
DMT is like blow the fucking doors off your perception and realize that this world we're in is like, it's nothing. It's just a little illusion, right? There's so much more outside of it. So there was that. But with the DMT, I think it's like you got a computer with so much storage space, and you got it's like 1,000 times more than you can retain. So you see all this stuff, and while you're there, you're like, ha ha ha, I know everything. Oh yes. But when you come back, how much of it can you hold on to,
Dr. Andy Galpin. Arguably, this is the only weight training related episode you will ever need to watch. Dr. Andy Galpin studies muscle physiology, so why muscle grows, gets stronger, breaks down, etc. Throughout the whole episode, he provides gems of information regarding training that he discovered, investigating in his lab, and how to apply the science into practice. For example, he goes into how to develop power for athletic performance.
For example, someone does a box jump. And they're like, okay, box jumps, I want to get better power in my legs. So they'll go and do all right, let's spar for 5 rounds, and then I'll go do 100 box jumps as fast as I can. You're not getting any faster like that. You're just getting more tired. That will not improve your power at all.
It won't?
No, because you're not jumping fast. You're actually jumping at a very sub-max speed the whole time because you're already fatigued.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
They also talk about interesting and unique training methods when aiming to develop strength, speed, and power.
A reason I brought Louis up is he's classic for saying first reps. So if you did 3 sets of 10, right? Well, you had 3 first repetitions, right? So you had 3 reps that you did after rest. But if you did 10 sets of 3, now you had 10 first reps.
Oh, interesting.
Right, so now you did the same total repetitions, but 10 of them were done after full rest, which means you're going to have more power and more force.
That makes sense. That seems smarter.
That's basically it.
So you're better off doing 10 threes than 3 10s.
For strength.
For strength.
Or power. Or speed.
Galpin has since become a much more popular figure in the fitness world since this episode, featuring multiple times on the Andrew Huberman podcast, for example, and it is no surprise when you listen to him on JRE back in 2017. Hamilton Morris. Hamilton Morris is a very popular guest. He's featured 3 times on the podcast, one of the episodes having over 20 million views on YouTube. So why is he on the most underrated episode list? Well, that is because we're specifically covering his first episode on the podcast, which was all the way back in January 2012 for episode 177, which many people would not have seen nor heard about. Back then, Morris was writing for Vice magazine. His articles would mainly be about his crazy experiences involving traveling to obscure locations and taking psychedelics.
I think the first thing I ever saw you do, you were tripping somewhere in the jungle. I don't really remember what it was, but you had taken some trip to hang out with some indigenous people.
Yes.
And what did they give you?
It was the Mayaruna Indians, and they gave me well, they actually didn't give it to me. It was sort of a complicated trip to find them, but they traditionally use the venom of this frog called Philomedusa bicolor that produces a venom that's rich in all of these different psychoactive peptides and specifically contains this substance called dermorphin that's a super potent opioid. But they kind of... Whoa. Yeah. But it doesn't have any sort of like a classical opioid effect. Like, it's not really a sedative, and people claim that it gives them everlasting energy. They're able to hunt for days without sleep and to go days without eating and all sorts of supernatural feats.
Wow. You have a great voice, by the way. Can we just say that you have a very mysterious voice, and it's very interesting. You should
Especially,
read books
you know,
to
cool
grown
shit.
men.
Yeah.
He investigates the effects of different psychedelic drugs, but due to his first-hand experience alongside his scientific background, he is very informative and gives a unique perspective on the realm of psychedelic experiences. Dan Carlin. This might not be considered underrated, and I can accept that, but I wanted to include the first 2 Dan Carlin episodes anyway, because they're really liked on Reddit and they are both a decade old. Specifically, I'm talking about episode 328 from February 2013 and episode 378 from July 2013 with Dan Carlin, who is the host of Hardcore History. Both episodes cover different historical and political topics extensively. The first one talks about the government drone strikes, the American political system, recreational drugs, and much more.
Old school. We went old school with the music, folks, because Dan Carlin's here of Hardcore History and DC Common Sense. You have 2 podcasts.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, man, there's very few people that have been requested as many times as you by the fans.
I owe you for having me here. I had no idea we had such crossover on the audience.
Apparently quite a bit, because people on my message board are super pumped about this. People online are super pumped about this.
The second episode covers similar topics such as robot armies, life on other planets, and dinosaurs. Bill Burr. These 2 episodes are some of the funniest GRE episodes ever. Bill Burr is another very popular guest who has been on the podcast a bunch. Again, because these are the top underrated guests, we'll be looking specifically at the first episodes Bill Burr was on. Bill Burr's first appearance was on episode 26 all the way back in June 2010. You can tell this is the early days and how much wilder the podcast was from the opening minute with Joe opening up with his sponsor.
And somebody
Before we
still
even
put it up
start
there.
talking about anything, we're sponsored by the Fleshlight. This is a Fleshlight. Have you ever seen one of these, Bill Burr?
A flesh-colored flashlight?
No, this is the thing.
I don't know what that was.
You don't know what it is. Bill Burr's like,
what is that?
You fuck it. That's the butthole version.
It's patented rubber technology.
Jesus, fill it.
Really?
Put your finger in it. Put your finger in it.
Sex toys freak me out.
Okay, you jerk off though, right? I mean, I assume, right?
Constantly.
Okay, now why wouldn't you
I had a
get one of
good one
these?
on the way up to your house here.
They then go on to talk about government manipulation, how banks take your money, and how the CIA sell drugs to maintain control over poor sections of the population. Steve Volk. This episode actually provides some evidence of why telepathy and other fringe supernatural things may be real. Steve Volk wrote a book called Fringeology: How I Tried to Explain Away the Unexplainable and Couldn't. He featured on episode 308 back in January 2013. The episode is based around topics covered in the book, which looks at whether fringe things exist, such as telepathy, for example.
Your purpose initially was kind of to disprove a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, the chapter on telepathy in particular scared the hell out of me because I had gotten so used to hearing the skeptical line, there's no evidence, there's no evidence, there's no evidence, that I really expected to find no evidence.
Right.
Yeah. And when I realized I was going to have to hang my ass out on the line and say, you know what, there's actually some evidence, it was scary. That was scary.
Was it scary because you thought, like, intellectually you'd be criticized and you'd be marginalized?
Sure. I thought I'd be ostracized within the profession of journalism, you know.
It is a very interesting episode because Volk wrote the book to disprove these things. However, as he looked at the evidence, some of his opinions changed.
In the day when you mentioned before the sense of being stared at,
Mm-hmm.
been some really good research on this. Again, one of the skeptics I mentioned, Richard Weissman, did a study with a woman named Marilyn Schlitz where they collaborated. And they did 3 separate studies trying to figure out whether or not somebody could sense that someone was staring at the back of their head.
Yeah.
And they had real nice controls on it. Weissman was part of the experiment. 2 out of the 3 times they did it, they got, a statistically significant effect where people were right, far more often than chance would have suggested. And if you think of it in an evolutionary sense, which I do in the book, right, is that back in the day when we were being hunted all the time, right, when we didn't have the kinds of fortifications we have now against the angry packs of wolves that are out there, and we would have needed to have this ability to know that we're being stared at.
Now, did you know that Joe Rogan actually might be working for the CIA? Probably not. If you want to know about this and more mind-blowing stories and conspiracies from the entire life of Joe Rogan, it's all compiled into this 1 hour long JRE iceberg.